All right. Good morning, everybody. I am so happy that you could be here on for our March Right by the Rails Writers Enrichment. Today we are featuring our PwC Poet Laureate, Kimby Miller. I am really excited, Kim, to have you back because I know you are the haikuist extraordinaire. Kim is not just the poet laureate, but she's won all kinds of awards for her poetry, especially for her use of haiku. So she is definitely the expert and inspiring. So welcome back. Thank you. And with
Thank
that, I'm
you.
going to let you take it away. If you want to share your screen or whatever you need to do, go for it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's good to see everybody, even those I can't see. It's just, I guess it's a common saying. I'm so used to saying it. For those of you I can see, it's good to see you. For those of you I can't see, thanks for being here. So, as we go into haiku and learning the different forms, I'll tell you first that I'm going to be talking about one specific form because a lot of people don't know haiku is written in several forms. People know about the 575, which is about what we're about to go over, but they do have another form of haiku. It's an intricate form. It's a beautiful form. I do not write that one. So I tell people up front that people think there's only one type. I'm like, no, there's two. And Japanese art form, as gorgeous as it is more than one. There's tanka, there's different forms. So if 17 syllables is too small for you, I say try it first because I was the same way. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm a free form writer. I write. 17 syllables is never going to work. It's never going to make sense. It's too short. To be honest with you, when I first learned what it was, I totally gave up on it. I'm just going to be honest. I said, I'm not going to do it. And then I made it a challenge. I said, okay, if you do one really good one, then we'll keep going. So once I challenged myself to do what I thought was a really good one anyway. And after I was happy with that one, I kept going. So I'm going to challenge you first to do haiku. And then if you love it or hate it, even more importantly, I want you to keep going and get familiar with it, get comfortable with it. And don't just go on to the next one like the tankas and the other ones that they have, because they have more syllable counts or more space. So I'm going to share my screen for a general meaning so you can know what I'm referring to. All right. So a lot of people don't know it's not supposed to rhyme. We take some liberty with the art form. And yes, I'm about to get into how we take liberty with it. But a traditional haiku is not supposed to be rhyming. So, unrhymed poetic form consisting of 17 syllables. Now, the syllables is another point of contention depending on who you speak with, because traditionally it was based on moras. And there's really no equivalent to a mora in the English language. So we kind of settled on haiku for us to have syllable counts. But understand, in the true Japanese language, we don't have an equivalent. We settled on syllables. So I need for you to know that, because depending on where you go and who you submit your haiku to, or who you are talking to about haiku, they may come at you and say, it's not really equivalent. And that's not for you. Well, 17 syllables. Yes, we know. But we haven't really found a equal count to a mora. We settled on syllables. So just so you're familiar with that syllable count definition we've come up with. When I say we, I mean the people way before me. This happened way before me. So 17 syllables arranged in 3 lines. So the first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and the third line has 5 syllables, respectively. And that's how you get to your 17 syllable count. It first emerged in Japanese literature through the 17th century. And they were trying to buck poetic, traditions also. But it didn't really become known to the 19th century. So just a little bit of background. Also, haiku is both singular and plural. That's a mistake a lot of people make. Haikus. Haiku is both singular and plural. And it's normal for you to say it, but that's Americanizing the word. It's both singular and plural already. A lot of people don't know that senryu also exists. And a senryu is also non-rhyming poem. Same setup, 17 syllables, 3 lines, 5 on the first line, 7 on the second line, and 5 on the last. Now, in the performance world is when you're a performing poet, we call both of these haiku. Now, when I do haiku, I go through this explanation. Traditional Japanese poem, haiku, nature. Senryu, any subject. That's the differentiation between these two. Haiku, nature. Senryu, human follies. So us, we have changed that to be any subject in the performance world. So you will find the performing poet saying haiku, even though it's a senryu. A few of us, again, make that distinction before we start. Hey, haiku, traditional Japanese poem only on nature. Senryu is human follies, really on any subject, or we've made it into any subject. But in the performance world, we call them both haiku. Now that causes a little problem when you get to the contest, because you have to see if they're looking for a haiku or a senryu. Because very few of the ones who are looking for a senryu call it that, because everybody calls it a haiku. So you'll have to look at the guidelines for inputting the poem to see if they're looking for a traditional haiku or they're okay with a senryu. So that's my first thing when I see a contest. Oh, haiku. Oh, wait. Which one are you looking for? It's not that I don't write both. It's just that I have a lot more senryu. So I'm gonna stop there for a minute. Any questions so far? And no question is silly, so I don't feel like I don't want to ask that. I hate when people hold questions and then everybody else had the same question, but you were the one brave enough to ask. We all good so far? Excellent. Okay, the last thing we'll go over before I pull this part down is a double entendre. And basically a double entendre is a word or phrase or poem that has more than one meaning or interpretation. Many of you have already written a double, triple, quadruple entendre and didn't realize you're doing that. So you can say, for instance, I walked the path my mother gave me. Now you could actually be talking about you walked the path, a literal path that your mother, took you on previously, or you're following her footsteps in life. Double meaning. You actually could literally be walking the path your mother gave you, she gave you this vision of this path, another vision. So that's 3. So entendres are fascinating because we, the hearer of it, have to interpret it our own way. And when the writer is writing it, they know that they've written it, that it could have another meaning, or it could be literally what they wrote. And that's the beauty of the entendres. Some are double, I've heard triple, I've heard quadruple. It really depends on how it can be interpreted. So any questions on the entendres?
Yes, is that commonly used in haiku or senryu, or is that a standalone subject?
It's a standalone. It can be used. I personally love to make a twist in everything because that's how I, can't be easy. But it's not necessary in your haiku or senryu. But if you're feeling challenging, by all means, absolutely, that would be another great avenue to add on top of it.
Kim, Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to ask another question, but finish what you were saying first.
Okay. So it would be another way to, when you finish writing and you're getting proficient, now I'm going to say challenge yourself, and let's throw a double entendre or a triple entendre in there.
Okay, Kim, can anyone do a group of haiku and make it into one poem? The subject, carry the subject through. Is that possible? Is that okay?
I've seen people do that.
Mhm.
There's not, now here's the kicker. There's always the haiku police who have self-appointed themselves the guardian of the haiku. And they will say, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's your pen, you do what you like. So that's what I tell people. I have seen it done. I've never done it, but I have seen that done.
Would you suggest not mixing the traditional haiku with the senryu?
I would say if you're doing a long poem and you're doing both, I can see how I would, if I was going to do it and I was going to do both, I probably would alternate traditional senryu, traditional, or I would do all traditional, all senryu. So I tried to make it a pattern if I was going to do a full one. I've never done a full one. I'm like, the 17 syllables enough. So 17 syllabling myself to a completion would be too much for me. But if you feel up to it, I have seen it done. And again, there's going to be the poetry police who are going to always tell you that's not right, blah, 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 you know. Yeah. Now, the other difference between a haiku and a senryu is the lines. In a haiku, a traditional one, every line has to be a complete thought. So that way, the first line is going to start with a capital letter every time, because every line is a complete thought in a traditional haiku. In a senryu, it may not start with a capital letter, because you could be continuing the word or the thought onto the next line. Now that's where the haiku police come in. Some are like, that's not a haiku, the word is not in the same line. I'm like, you don't hear that when you're saying it, so how would you know? So in a traditional performance world, people do continue it on the same line. There's no such thing in the performance world as someone going, okay, wait, let me go and see if that continued on to the next line, blah, blah, blah. No one does that. They don't do that. So I'm gonna stop share for a minute.
Tim, I have a question about double entendre.
Yes.
What is the difference between that and metaphor?
So a metaphor is a comparison between two things. So, and a simile uses the word like or as. So when you're comparing, you're as beautiful as a diamond necklace. As made it a simile because you're comparing two unlike things. So a metaphor would be comparing two like things that you don't use like or as. Your smile, let's see. The beauty of your smile makes the sun jealous. So I'm comparing your smile to the sun, the brightness of your smile to the sun, but I didn't use like or as. So whereas a double entendre, you're trying to make it two meanings and you're not comparing anything.
Can something be both?
It can. That's you didn't hit the trifecta there, but yes, it can.
Thank you.
It absolutely can. Okay, let me pull out of there. Yes. Now you're knocking it out the park with that one. So yes, anything is possible there. So let me show you some non-traditional. And then we'll go into traditional. My screen wants to act right. Oh, that was the wrong thing. Bear with me. No,
Somebody's raising their hand.
It's giving me a hard time today.
Nancy.
Yeah, hard to tell with that jellyfish background, which kind of is too much, but it's the color of Ukraine, so I left it up.
Ah,
I'll change it just for the sake of our eyes. Kim, there is a 31 syllable style that's all one line that also falls under this broad category of haiku, I think. Can you make the distinction, or is that a misnomer that it should not be under haiku?
I've never heard of a one-liner. The other one that I'm familiar with is still written in a 3-line form. The structure,
Okay, I used to know the name of it. It's 31 syllables, but it's written as one line. And when you're Googling things like haiku, it comes up, but I just cannot remember the name right now. Never mind. I'll share it in the notes on Right by the Rails.
okay. All right, let me add this one so I can put it on the screen. Yes, I'm curious to find out. When you find out what that is, please let me know, because I'm curious. Do you have to title your haiku? No. The only time I title them, if you ever see a title, which you'll see in a couple of these, that means it came from a book. And when I'm doing them in a book, I do put a title on it. So let me share my screen.
I sometimes number it like haiku 17 or haiku 18, you know, like that.
Mm-hmm. Numbers help keep me, that would help keep me sane too. Okay, so this one you can tell us from a book because it has a title. And this is a senryu because it's not on nature. And you can see with the form, it continues. I took my periods out clearly. And you can use punctuation like you normally and capitalization like you normally would, so that it's easier for the reader. The problem is, which this is a Kim pet peeve. This is not, there's no written rule when it comes to senryu, but this is something that pisses me off. So since the traditional haiku always has complete thoughts on each line, every line starts with a capital letter. Now, what people have done is taken that into senryu, but if you're continuing the thought, you don't need a capital letter. You're breaking up the person's reading perspective. You know, here, we've learned to read with the capitalization in the periods. So you can't take it and, you know, even when they hyphen the word, they capitalize it. I'm like, oh, you're driving me insane. I can't follow the pattern now. So anyway, that's a Kim pet peeve. So I think this is the way I believe it should be written. And I'll take it and do it the way some people do, which again drives me insane. So just because it's a new line, they make it capital. But I'm like, it's the middle of the sentence. So
Yeah.
I say, write it the correct way so that the reader especially can follow it. Now, normally I would put a word in front of can't, but I ran out of syllable counts. So I had to write it as is. And when you state your haiku, state it the same way you would your poetry. And what that means is, it's not a time to be like, well, it's just a haiku, let me just ramble through it and get, okay, I'm done. No, if you take time to pause and emphasize and read and elevate your poetry, take time to pause, emphasize, elevate, and read your haiku. So how I would read this one, if I was performing, is, and I always say haiku, and I normally go through an explanation of what a haiku is, but since I already went through that with you guys, I do haiku. I say haiku before each one because I just like to. So haiku. Can't drown out problems with liquor, needles, or pills. Pain will wait for you. Now, I could have just said, can't drown out problems with liquor, needles, or pill, pain will wait for you. Not the same. So I really wanted them to, and you say, well, how do you pick out the words to linger and pause on? Practice, practice. I don't want to hear that, but it's just practicing it and finding a natural place for you to put a pause, because I really wanted them to hang on after the pills, because I wanted them to try to figure out where I was going. Can't drown out problems with liquor, needles, or pills. Pain will wait for you. And then that hits a little different. I lowered my voice on pain will wait for you. So it's how you emphasize it, and you say, okay, I'm not doing all that. Okay, that's great for you. High, low, pausing. I'm not doing. That's fine. Just say it at an even pace that the person can hear where you're going. You're not going to go high, low, pausing and all that. Just say it clearly and concisely so the person can hear what you're saying. So any questions on that? And we'll go over the count. Can't drown out problems. Can't drown out problems. That's my 5 count. With liquor, needles, or pills. There's my 7. Pain will wait for you. 5, 7, 5. And if you're like me, a native New Yorker, you may need help. That's a syllable count. Because we New Yorkers, as you say, elongate words, shorten words. So I go to howmanysyllables.com, and that's what I use as my syllable count if I'm in question. So don't feel bad about using help, because I surely do. And sometimes I'm shocked at the way I pronounce the word growing up as opposed to the actual syllable count in the word. And if you find that you're a syllable over, normally the conjunctions will help you out. Cannot, 2, can't, 1. Most of them are 1. So if you're a syllable count over, make it a conjunction. Yes. Did I see a hand? Oh, go ahead. Oh, you don't have to raise, just, oh, sorry, I meant to tell you that. Don't feel like you have to raise, just let it fly.
Okay. All right. I just want to say that these last 2 points that Kim is making, I think, are really critical, whether you're performing or not performing. One of the problems that people have who have English as a second language is they may learn to say, what do you think of that? And in America, we say, what you think of that?
Right.
As if it were one word. And so this is why people have a hard time understanding, plus we speak quickly. So that enunciation is really important, as well as for that purpose, as well as for the syllable count. I just want to appreciate your having made that point, Kim.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Especially because we have global audiences now. People all over the world are looking at our stuff and listening to our things on YouTube. So that's why I burst in here.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's really relevant for all, these little nuances that you'll be like, this is ridiculous. No one, and people will appreciate it. They will.
It also helps with the interpretation. The emotional impact of reading it that way helps the audience with interpretation of what was meant there. So that's good. Yeah.
Absolutely. A great point, June. Thank you. Because people sometimes kind of figure out where you're going with it. Is this a happy one? Is this a sad one? Is this, what's your point? And the way you say it helps them get kind of where you're trying to take them. So by all means, but again, if that's not you, I get some of you are not spoken word poets. I'm not trying to drag you along. I'm just saying, do what you feel comfortable. But even if you're not all that, spoken word, okay, that's you, you can still read it in a way that doesn't make it kind of disappear. You can even the pauses alone will do it. For example, can't drown out problems with liquor, needles, or pills. Pain will wait for you. All that was just pauses. So pauses can do a lot to deliver the point too. So keep that in mind. All right, so enough of me talking. We're gonna get to writing. Let the challenge begin. Now, we're going to go for a traditional haiku first. So we're going to try to encapsulate every thought in every single line. So let's see. Okay, we're talking about the when. Let's see, do I want that to be the first line? Yeah, let's keep it a little haiku-ish, senryu-ish. Now you can write a traditional haiku or a senryu. That's why I kind of tried to make it kind of both. But the first line is, the wind danced with me. And let's see what you come up with. Give you another minute to see what you came up. All righty. Who'd like to share what they came up with? Even if it's not perfect.
I don't mind going.
Okay.
Although, preface it with, I really appreciate your insights on how to read poetry out loud. I think I'm pretty much an introvert, like some of our writers are.
Mhm.
So, you know, doing the performance aspect of it, I applaud you, and I'm always in awe when I listen, because. So that said, I actually did two of them.
Okay.
The wind danced with me. Snow on a mild March morning. Blizzard tangoing. And then I don't like the second one as much, but danced with me. This is how the weather works. We are connected.
Very good. Very good.
I'll do one. I had 3 different last lines, none of which are what I want. But haiku.
Okay.
The wind danced with me. It ruffled animals' fur. Together we soared,
Hmm.
or sailed, or we loved its freshness, or still working, still working.
I got it. June?
Okay.
Well,
I'll
I thought we were just doing the second line. I didn't know you wanted the third two. So I
Okay.
did the second line. Snow melts down my naked neck.
Ooh, beautiful. Hmm. Very nice.
Okay, I have one.
Go ahead, Michael.
Buy me a river. We can frolic unobserved. Are we alone now?
Wow. Very nice. Very nice.
I also did two, and I think I broke the rule in the first one, Kim, by
That's-
possibly eliminating the period for a run-on, which would
That's
not really
okay.
be traditional. The wind danced with me, like a gentleman laughing. The trees closed their eyes.
Wow, that was gorgeous vision. Oh, the imagery in that. Wow.
Then the second one, the wind danced with me. We needn't music or words. For once we seized dawn.
Nice, very nice.
Wow. Everybody's just knocking it out the park. Y'all are being picky, but I hear no bad poets here. Okay. And this is new, so you'll be super hard on yourself. That's normal. And you'll go back and you'll edit it and you'll be like, oh, I changed this line. And, you know, or like Nancy, I have poems that have like 3 alternate.
And Kim, can we steal your first line?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'm going to go back and we're going to do another one. Again, for this one, no, it would help if I hit share, wouldn't it? For this one, I'm trying not to paste the whole thing. Hold on, let me not, because I don't want you to see what mine is yet. Okay, let me stop share because I copied the whole thing. I'll tell you what mine is at the end. Yeah, I did copy it. Okay, for this one, that one I didn't actually write one, but the ones I'm gonna do going forward, I have written one on. So I will tell you what mine is after you do it. Okay, now that I erased it, because if I show you the whole one, it kind of skews what you're gonna write, and I hate doing that. So that's why I don't do that, in case you're wondering. It's not torture. Okay. I know I'm on this wind thing, right? Wind carries a scent is your first line. Now you again can write a traditional haiku or senryu. That's up to you. Wind carries a scent. All righty, one more minute. All right, whenever you're ready, whoever'd like to go.
I'll go.
Okay.
Wind carries a scent of decaying autumn leaves. Spring is on the brink.
Yes. Yes. Flawless.
We vote for that.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We do, we do.
I'll go. I did 3.
Okay.
Wind carries a scent. The flames move ever nearer. Run for safety now.
Mm.
Or
Really
wind
good.
carries a scent. All animal noses twitch. Danger to discern.
Ooh.
Or wind carries a scent, which is why people choose to wear deodorant. Two Senru, one haiku. Sorry, I forgot to go there.
No problem. No problem. Very beautiful. Y'all get there. Go ahead, poet.
Okay, I'll do one here.
Mm-hmm.
Wind carries the scent of the words spoken in haste. Subtract me in time.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Excelente.
Wow. Okay. Anybody else?
Go. Yeah.
Okay.
Wind carries a scent. Bitter charred dust escaping. Dry leaves hide nothing.
Mm. Wow.
I just
Anybody
did
else
one this
before?
time.
Okay.
Wind carries a scent. Memory of all lives lost. My mother's perfume.
Mm. We went a similar track. I'll share you what mine actually is. Wind carries a scent. A flower's fragrance can't hide nature's free perfume. And as you can tell, it's just traditional. Everything's starts with the capital letter. Every thought is encapsulated in each line. Period, period. There's no carryover. Everything's complete. That's how you know I'm doing a traditional haiku. It's on nature. It's 3 complete lines and everything starts with a capital because every complete thought is done in that sentence. Yes.
And when you say complete thought, does that mean that it does need punctuation?
No.
Okay.
No. There's a lot of haikuists who do not use punctuation at all. They don't even use capitalization.
Okay.
You'll find a lot of you'll read a lot and like, what? There's no capitalization. It just, to me, it's just preference. Now I'm sure they'll have a long drawn out answer for you, but I think it's a matter of preference. I think you either don't use it and don't use capitalization. It's just my preference. This is not a rule. But it's like, if you're going to use capitalization, you should use punctuation. But if you're using neither, it kind of flows and people kind of get how to read it. So it's kind of okay. But if you're using one, to me, it throws it off.
Okay.
So I think I'm not going to use it to get rid of the capitalization. But again, that's not the beauty of haiku and senrai. It has changed so much. Again, there's the haiku police. But in general, that's how it's written. or it's exactly this. Or you see it that way. Normally. Again, there's always the people who kind of just go in the way they want to go.
Sorry, let me just ask a little bit more specifically too. Say that you were capitalizing each line,
Mhm.
and let's say wind carries a scent had a period, and so did nature's free perfume,
Mhm.
but maybe the middle line did not. You would still capitalize. Is that still considered within traditional frame?
Well, if this was a complete thought and you just chose not to capitalize it, that's fine. As long as you're not carrying the thought over. The punctuation is not as important as the thought. So let's say this wasn't enough and I had to put hide here. Then under traditional haiku, that would be a no-no because my complete thought should have been in the second line.
Okay, yes, I see that. Sorry, let me say one more time.
Okay.
The first and second, the way that you originally had it,
Mhm.
flowers fragrance can't hide was, yes. The first and second would have periods, but say the third one did not. Would that still follow?
Oh yeah, as long as it's a complete thought on the third line. In other words,
Okay.
you're not going, nature's free. Oh, I ran out of syllable count, so woo-hoo. We're
Thank
stopping
you for
there.
clarifying.
Yeah, we're stopping there because I'm out of, yeah, and you could just have chosen not to put a period here because you want the person to, this is where we poets get really, I was working with a young poet the other day and she's like, I said, she's submitting this for a contest. I said, so she's not going to perform it. The judges are just going to read it. So she had periods on certain parts. I said, I'm just curious. I know you have a reason, poet. But, and she would have been maybe 16, 15. I said, so why do you have periods on occasional lines? Oh, that's the part I really want them to take a pause on. I said, I knew you had a reason because it's too scattered for it not to be a specific reason. But since you're not going to be there when the person reads it, I don't want the judge to go, because you're assuming a poet is going to be a judge. Now, hopefully, you'll have a poet that'll be a judge that'll go, I'm sure, she wanted me to, I mean, even I wasn't sure what she wanted me to do, and I'm a poet. So what I advise her to do is either put them all in or take them all out, because you're assuming a poet is going to read it. Now, I assumed that they were there for a reason. Someone else may go, wow, she skipped the whole section with no periods here. Marks off. So, when you don't know who the reader is, do it as conveniently as possible. So that's what my suggestion is. If it's for you and no one else is going to see it, you put in whatever format you feel like it. But if you're going to, submit it for something, just make whatever you do consistent so that whoever looks at it can get that you chose not to do all capital letters and no punctuation. You chose to do all capital letters with punctuation. So whatever you decide is up to you, but just make it consistent so that the reader is not like, what's going on here? What are they writing? Why is part of it, because we are creatives and we get in our creative head, we'd be like, there's no period here because I want you to whisk. I want the perfume to carry. I want the, we're doing all that and the person is spending a half an hour going, the period's missing. So keep that in mind, because I know as creatives, we go deep in here and another person is just going, they don't know what a period goes at the end of the sentence. And you're like, that's not, I want the perfume smell to linger. I wanted you to stretch the perfume. And they're like, no, I didn't get that. I didn't get that at all. So now we're going to go into, go ahead,
I'm
Nan.
sorry. Michael, I see you unmuted. Did you have a question before I go, since I talk a lot? No? Okay. Kim, you used the term haikuist. Is that a formal term for people who write poetry in haiku style?
No, actually, it's something, of course, that we invented once again.
Okay. But it's okay to use it in that, in polite company?
Yes, in polite company. Yeah, of course, in the police realm, you'll be, yeah. You'll be, the spank. But, yeah.
Gotcha.
The rest of us are like, it's a cute term for those of us who are in love with the art form. And it could be more, again, because we don't use the word senryu, it could really be a senryuist. But as you can see, that's kind of
Right,
hard to flow with. So
right.
everything is considered haikuist. So yes.
Cool. Thank you so much.
No problem. So now we're going to go into the untraditional, and I'm going to have you stretch yourself a little bit. So what do I do when I really want to stretch myself when I write a haiku? I write it for 2 people, 3 people. You're going to be having a conversation in a haiku. And you're like, okay, you said it's just 17 syllables, and now you want me to have 2 people talking or 3 people talk. Okay, come on. I don't have enough space for that. You do have enough space for that. You do. So normally I'll give you a first line, but since this is a, as I call it, 2 or 3 person haiku, I'm not going to give you a first line. I'm going to give you full latitude to write whatever way you want to write it. But I want to know somewhere in there that is more than 1 person talking. Now, how you do that is up to you.
Wow.
All right, give you another minute. All righty, let's see what you have.
Oh, I didn't know I was unmuted. So you're hearing me sniffling.
No, you were completely quiet.
Oh, this is good. I was trying. Well, since I'm unmuted, I'll go. I have two.
Okay.
One is for conversation with two people. One is for conversation with, well, you'll see.
Got it.
What would you ask for if you had three wishes now? Love and peace on earth. The other one is, why did you do that? Just because I wanted to. Wrong answer, daughter. That happens to be a true story, but never mind.
Gotcha.
Okay, I guess I'll try one here. It just has some similarity to yours. You should not do that. Why not? I am a loony. That destroys a judge.
Go ahead, June. Very nice.
I got one, I think. Why are you in town? The reading of Grandpa's will. He disowned you years ago.
Ooh,
Mhm.
wow. Yeah, knocking it out the park.
I'll go.
I think it helps if you write dialogue for other stories that you have to get away from the he said, she said, and you know, Peter said something or other, and you have to make people understand that two people are talking rather than just one. Yeah,
Exactly.
so that's cool.
I'll go ahead. I had to title it
Mhm.
Cheap Shot.
Okay.
The title is Cheap Shot. Inhale, exhale. In, it's fine, she didn't mean it. Whoa, wicked curveball.
Ooh. Beautiful. Anyone else?
I had a couple.
Okay.
You inspired me for this one, Kim. You can't write like that. That's not even poetry. Your tower's crumbling. This one. He said it was love. I said last week's flowers already wilted.
Ooh. Ouch. Very nice. Anyone else? Okay, I will do one of mine. And yeah, before I do one of mine, y'all did exactly what I wanted. And I didn't do mine first because if I did mine first, you would have done it like mine. And once I do mine, I'll talk about yours. Haiku. Him. You ain't nothing. Me. I was nothing. That's why I picked you. Bye. Bye. So
Very
for
good.
that particular one, I put in the me and the him, but I didn't want you to necessarily do that. So that's why I had you write first, to know that you could write it without the me and the him being included, or the she or they, whoever you were including in yours. And y'all did it in a way that I could hear the conversation, even though you didn't say me, him, she, her, he's talking, I'm talking, they're talking. So that shows you in set. Now, before that, you probably was like, she's crazy. There's no way you're going to get no conversation in 17 syllables. It's not happening. I'll humor her and, you know, try to write a little something. Okay, here you go, Kim. Didn't work, see? Because you're crazy. That didn't work. But as you did it, you're like, well, I can't do that. So a lot of times when you start writing a particular form, especially haiku and senryu, you start writing flowers or you start writing people, but you can forget this can be a conversation. And even though it's 17 syllables, you can fit a lot. Look what you just did with 17 syllables. You had a whole conversation happening that I could tell who was who, where the dialogue was, where the dialogue changed, all by how you read the haiku. That's how it was done. You didn't tell me ahead of time, okay, Kim, there's 2 people in this one, and one person is at this, and none of you did that. You went straight into your haiku and you read it in a way that us, the listeners, could tell where the differentiation happened, where the other person began and where the other person ended, just by how you stated it. And that's the power of the voice. The power of the voice is how you emphasize your poem and tell us the differences. Because we'll go with you on whatever path you put us on, but you have to put us on the path. We'll go. We will. So, since I know our hour is up, at this point, I will take any questions. Have I won haiku contest? Yes. I decided one year to be insane and go to a contest called Southern Fried. It's one of the largest competitions in the region, actually in the world, and in the region definitely. I don't know what got into it. Anyway, so that was in 2019, and it's any age, they could care less, you know, you're good at what you do, you go and you compete. So basically what happens is they have all these rounds in the beginning. It's you against someone else, and it's the best 2 out of 3. And if you make that, then you go to the next level, then to the next level, and then to the next level. So I went, I'm like, oh, you know, this could be fun. Let's see how my haiku do against others. So I go and I'm like, immediately, I'm like, this is a mistake. And it's not a mistake because haiku aren't good. I'm just like, I now realize I'm not a competition person. I can get in front of 1 million people. So what? Talk to 1 million people. So what? I find my competition is my Achilles heel. That's when my nerves start, you know, going into hyper overdrive. So the first one, I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, why did you sign up for this? Why do you keep, okay. So went through that first round, second round, third round. Okay, now I'm trying to make it to the finals. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now you have to figure out which haiku is going to beat the other person. It's 3 judges. So I did one and made it to the finals. It was an all-females final, me and a young lady. And I was doing pretty good for a while. I can't even tell you how many won, because I could tell you I felt like almost blacked out when I actually did win. But I was up 4-0. And I think it was best 8, something like that, 8 out or whatever. So I'm like, 4-0, I'm doing pretty good here. You know, again, none of this is showing because I am too busy trying to figure out what next haiku I'm going to do, especially if she went first and I had picked one. I'm like, is that going to beat that one? Oh my goodness. So, okay, anyway, long story short, I'm up 4-0 and we end up tied. So whoever does the next haiku that the judges like, win. So now, as you can imagine, with a book full of haiku and several floating in my head, I'm trying to figure out which one am I, and she went first. Now she's a beautiful young lady, great haikuist, but the one she did to me was not a good one. But I liked some of her other ones. Now I don't think some of the rounds she should have beat me, but that's okay. That's just me being me. Now some of the rounds, okay, she had me. All right, whatever. Some of the rounds, okay. But Now I'm trying to figure out what is going to beat that one. And I got, 6, 7, I whittled it down to. Remember, you don't have a half an hour to decide. So I'm like walking as slowly as I can to the mic, because when it's not your turn, you back away from the mic. So I'm like, if I walk really slowly, it won't look like I'm trying to decide what to do. So I finally get to them. I'm like, okay, do this one. I just, la, la, la. And I said, like, okay, must be the one I'm supposed to be doing. And everybody started clapping. There's supposed to be no clapping, by the way, because they don't want audience input into the thing. So long story short, I won that one. And I'm like, I'm not doing this again. No, it's just, that's where my nerves come in when it's a competition. Performing, no. Competitions, yes.
So in those kinds of competitions, you're not having to write it on the spot like we just did, right? You're taking a collection of things you've already written and choosing from among them. Oh,
Yes.
well, that's good, because I have the same issue you do. I can perform in front of anybody, but it's this on the spot thing that makes me insecure, shall we say.
Yeah,
Like word.
exactly.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Mhm.
Are most competitions like that, where you can take your own basically portfolio for yourself?
Yeah,
Oh.
normally the haikuists are the only ones who have their books with them. There's a huge array of slams. There's the individuals and there's the teams. The haiku people, we the ones normally who have our stuff with us, because which one are we going to use against this particular haiku?
Yeah.
So for us, it's accepted. Now, if you were a single performer or a group performer, that would be a big no-no.
Gotcha.
That would be
Thank
a big
you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to have you back so that you can just talk about performance and how to do this, because this is definitely awesome conversation. And I think a lot of people aren't really savvy as to how to read their work, whether it's poetry or, so this is great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I think that that's part of the issue, because we kind of get worried about how we'll be perceived when we read, right? So then we change how we read to think how the person who we don't know is going to perceive how we read. So we change how we're going to read because we're changing it for the stranger who we don't know what they like. So what you want to do is be you. And if you're you and they like you, and if they're you and they don't like you, you were you. You can go home happy because you did what you wanted to do. When you change for the audience or change for the perception of the audience, that's where you get upset with you, because then they didn't like you, or they did like fake you. Now fake you has to show up every time you do poetry. So you're like, oh, we loved you. I'm like, oh, I was pretending because I saw that you like the artist before me. So I kind of copied their style, and that's not who So just, you're going to find a way, and I'll definitely come back, love to perform your poetry your way. Because as great as any poet is, nobody wants to hear 55 poets with the exact same style.
Sure. Awesome.
Could I interject one more time, being who I am? You know how I am. As some of you know, I used to work with homeless people, most of whom were drug addicts in recovery. And I scripted their stories, and we performed them all over creation, including Congress and Governor Wilder and blah, blah, blah place. And I actually got accused. Now, these are homeless people telling their own stories that I scripted. I actually was accused of having hired professional actors to pretend they were homeless. That's how good those guys got. And it was about two things: the diction thing that we talked about earlier, but the concentration not on self and how you appear to others, but on the essence of the material. And when you can really care about the message in your poetry, then a lot falls away in terms of ego, and you're really able to present it. So I'd love to have us do a workshop with Kim, practicing those things together for performance art. Regardless of whether you want to perform it, for public, it helps you craft your work better and understand when you hear it out loud. So that's just a suggestion. And Kim, thanks so much for doing this. I was so glad I remembered to come.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with you, because I was fortunate, we're fortunate to go back and work in a women's prison. And we teach poetry and theater. And we just added theater. We used to only teach poetry. And you say, women's prison, what do they need poetry for? Because poetry holds so much. The ability to write your pain as opposed to, you're finding a new way to express your pain. You're finding a new way to release what is holding you. And to see them come in sometimes just mumbling through poetry. And sometimes poets walk in the room, let me tell you. We were up there, we finally back in because of COVID and went up 2 weeks ago. And a young lady said, oh, I'll do my poem. And she blew me away. I'm like, well, you I was like, oh, this is why I critique. I was like, yeah, I got nothing. That was superb. So you get, people like her who walk in like spoken word poets, blow your mind. You're sitting there, you're like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be critiquing. What? Could you say that line again? Oh, Kim, you're critiquing. Oh. And then you get people who barely can, speaking above audible terms because this is new for them. And then, we have a showcase at the end, and then to have them, yes, it's in the prison, because obviously you can't, take people out. So to have them showcase in front of sometimes the warden brings outside the guests. We had one where it was just the inmates, I hate to call them inmates, people who are in prison who were there. And they were one of the best audiences I have ever performed in front of. They were so giving and interactive, and they were cheering. And so I say all that to say, poetry is bigger than poetry. I call poetry a symphony because it feeds so many people in so many different ways.
And I love that you bring it to so many people in different communities, Kim. That's one thing I really appreciate about you. I was actually talking about you to Brian before we came into the meeting. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate, we're going to wrap it up. We will put this online for those who missed the live presentation. Do keep an eye out for our emails so that you can keep up to date with what we're doing next. We've got a couple of different things coming up in April. So signing off, thank you very much. And you all have a very creative day.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Kim. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.